Okay guys, we are back and we're inside of Path of Exile 2 today, and today we've got a bit of a different video for you, as we have been inside of Path of Exile now for about 10 to 15 hours, and we're going to give you guys our first impressions and my experience inside of the game as a fresh to try out player inside of the Path of Exile franchise. Never really played the first one, so for me this is a great experience. We're going to break everything down as to how the launch went versus what I've actually been doing and how I found the game on initial response, and whether it's worth you putting in that 20 to 30 Great British Pounds mark to be able to actually play it early access. So with that being said, if you haven't already, hit the like button and subscribe with post notifications turned on, but we're not going to mess around. Let's dive straight in and let you guys know exactly what's been going on in the world of Path of Exile 2. So starting off, the launch was the biggest touch and go and the craziest, greatest, worst impression I've ever seen in my life. Now, as we all know, with these live service model games that go online, these are never really easy to launch and they always end up going wrong with queues and wait times, but this was a whole other experience altogether. If any development team out there can take away one thing from GGG, that is seriously the communication skills that they genuinely put out during the launch of that. Now, they had an emergency sort of like scratch around the back end to make sure that they could suffice everything that was going to be happening, as they had over 1 million redemptions of the early access codes inside of the game. So they had an emergency play around to make sure the servers could handle it in the last hour before it actually launched, which, as you can guess, obviously delayed the launch by quite a bit, and that was just something altogether that everybody was quite gutted about. But with the consistent communication of around 15 to 30 minutes at a time, letting us know what was going on, it was absolutely brilliant. All of us waiting there in the login screen was hilarious. The memes were running rampant, the Twitters were just going absolutely crazy, and they were just keeping us as up to date as they possibly could. Not only that, but at one point the servers actually went up. We got 4 minutes inside of the game where we got to create a character and dive into the first piece of the tutorial and then be booted out again afterwards, and the endorphin levels were just, it was such an emotional roller coaster. But nonetheless, once we eventually did get in, we had an amazing experience inside of this game. As somebody who never played Path of Exile 1 but has played the Diablo franchise in the past, this was a absolutely top end experience for me, and I could not drag myself away from the computer to be able to stop playing it. Now, I meant for the witch build, and we love the necromancy style that they have inside of this game, being able to summon minions, and as a primarily solo player for the most part, I don't generally play these games with a lot of people, I thought that the minion build would really kind of give me a bit more of an edge and make it a little bit easier and a little bit softer on me, being able to go up against so many bosses that we already knew were going to be inside of the game. Now, I was partially right and partially wrong at the same time, and we'll get into the whole build concept in just a moment, but the game itself is absolutely beautiful. Not only are the areas, scenery, and places that you can search around genuinely so well made, the graphic design inside of this game is absolutely second to none, and does give games like Diablo 4 a little bit of a shaming movement when it seems to how these actually look. Sitting there staring at a screen for hours upon hours on end, you want this thing to look pretty, and this gives you that gory prettiness that you are definitely craving for inside of a game such as Path of Exile 2. The movement did take a little bit of getting used to, as with that generic top-down style. You have two movement methods. You have the WASD or you have the click to move. Now, I went for the WASD just out of like habit of playing games like this, but the click to move is also feeling quite good, and it does take a little bit of an adjustment to be able to actually play these styles. Although have heard and have not tried it, but have heard that using the controller is probably the easiest way and the best feeling for a game like this, which I have absolutely no idea how they've done it, but apparently the dynamic range on it makes it feel 10 times better. Now, I'm yet to try that, as I am keeping down that mouse and keyboard routing, and that's how I want to play the game, but apparently it just makes things so much smoother, and it's definitely worth trialing if you have a controller at hand and just want to see if it feels any better. Now, one thing that I was expecting from this game was for the storyline to be a little bit lackluster. A lot of things that we've experienced from Path of Exile 1, or at least from knowledge of it after research, was that the storyline didn't really leave people too gripped and didn't really leave people too like entwined into it and didn't really know what the storyline was actually about. And although there's not a lot of like massive cutscenes and loads of mad things going on, a majority of it is just dialogue, writing, and a static image of a character, I don't think I've been this engrossed in a storyline for a little while, which genuinely confused me a whole bunch. I'm one of those guys where graphics genuinely matter, and being able to see something happen on screen makes a massive difference, but for some reason with this game, just listening to the voice acting and the way that they told the story through the dialogue had me so damn gripped. Now, obviously, we're still really early in, we're just about finishing with Act 1, and we've still got 2 more acts to go before we actually hit the end game, but it is still, for the most part, just a really good experience, and for the the sake of 20 to 30 Great British pounds, an early access game that will eventually be free in around 60 months to a year, for me that's the best 20 to 30 pounds I've spent on a game in such a long time. Now when we get inside of the characters, obviously I've only played The Witch, but my experience with The Witch is been a little bit touch and go at points. If you are looking at using The Witch, my personal opinion would be is to kind of really spec into the decay build for that thing. It's going to be a little bit crazy because when you get to the bosses, the minions don't stay around for too long, they don't do as much damage as you may think, and you are obviously not going to be that tanky, go hit 'em sort of mechanic move. Dealing with hordes and all of that sort of stuff is so much fun, but you are going to have to spec into something else. For me personally, I had to spec into the sorcery as well, although people are leaning really into that build with the minions and being able to just boost them rather than boost you. For me, it's not really much of a fun experience having AI do it for me, so I kind of wanted to be able to have that push a little bit further, although it means that a lot of my health and regeneration has depleted quite a lot. Now, obviously, we're running down a tangent here because that's not what you're here for as a build guide, but nonetheless, what I'm trying to say is essentially the way that these games kind of run through is there is so much to them and there is so much of a complexity behind how you build your character that you genuinely become so invested in it. Now, we have had confirmation, I believe, that this is going to be your character that you can run all the way up until the full launch, which is again 6 months to a year. Whether that does have a character sort of like reset at that point, like Diablo does with a seasonary like movement, I don't actually know. I've not had the full confirmation on that one just yet, but as of right now, you are going to gain a physical attachment to your character. You are going to spend a lot of time sitting in menus, looking through numbers, and I'm not that guy. If you guys are here to the channel quite often, you'll know full well I am not the build guy, which is why we cover the news, because that's what I find interesting and that's where I really delve in. But even I have sat there for a solid hour at a time, going through the numbers, going through the loot, the gear that we've obtained, which by the way comes second to none, and just being able to try and make that build as strong as I possibly can. And when I can't do that, I'm more than happy to run away from that boss, go and attack some other stuff, do some other things, and then come back to the boss and reapproach it again. Now, I've heard a lot of things rotating around with regards to the boss, that it is sort of like the top-down version of Elden Ring as far as difficulty is concerned, and I wouldn't really say that. A lot of people are saying we're rolling, we're ducking, we're dodging, it's practically a Souls-like. Don't really feel that when I'm playing the game myself. It is a challenging game and it does have a lot of challenging aspects, but in the same time, it's almost okay that it's that difficult. And even though you die repeatedly, and when I say repeatedly, I mean repeatedly, somehow they've made it so that you still enjoy every damn second. And I cannot put my finger on exactly what it is that's making it do that. Now, there is a lot of cosmetics and stuff that you can purchase, but again, a lot of it is pretty much just cosmetics. A lot of them carry over from the primary game, so there are loads of different armor sets and stuff that you can obtain, and it's a really, really good time customizing your character if you do want to put in a few extra quid, considering you've only spent 20 to 30 pounds on the game at launch, which for me personally, I'd have spent the full 60 to 70 of a AAA service game for this title. Now, I know the comments are going to be going absolutely crazy, like this was sponsored, this was partnered. They have not got in contact with me at all. We don't generally cover this genre of gaming, and this has kind of really put a spin in the works for me, as I definitely want to be covering this going forward. My experience has been second to none, and I've really enjoyed every aspect of the game so far, although we still have 2 acts and the end game to get into. But for the most part, at the beginning of the game, it gives you exactly what you need, and your endorphin levels will sit pretty freaking high. When you drop loot, you do get that good feeling, and having the loot there, even though some of them are exactly the same as the ones you've already got, the numbers and the statistics on them are all completely different, and there's just so much you can fiddle with to make these builds just a little bit more stronger by changing just one thing. Now, you will have to get over all of the movements with upgrading certain things, and the fact that there is like 1500 nodes in the skill tree, or having certain gems that will enhance things, and then you can use other gems that will enhance the enhancements, and there are so many different avenues that you can go down it, and it may be a little bit overwhelming, as the game doesn't really give you so much direction when it comes to how to actually move that around, and you are probably going to have to go onto the internet to find that out, or just dig around the game yourself and figure it out for the most part anyway. But that's the only downside for me, is that the game doesn't really explain it overly well, because there are so many complexities in there. It doesn't have really such a in-depth tutorial as to how everything really works. It kind of gives you a lot of briefs and a lot of really, really small descriptions of exactly how it operates. But for me, for 20 to 30 bucks, 20 to 30 Great British pounds, this was an absolute nail on the head, and the best money I've spent this year with that low amount of money. Like I said, I'd have paid the AAA pricing for this one. It's absolutely absolutely banging. For me, this one is a high rating, even though IGN rated this lower than Veilguard, which we don't even want to get into that right now. That's absolutely disgusting. The internet talks for itself, with over 1 million total redemptions and I think a peak of about 1.5 million watching on Twitch at any one time. With Twitch drops enabled, it's a no freaking brainer, man. This game is definitely worth your time, and I recommend you go over to the Steam store, go over to the website, go and get your console and just get it downloaded now. You are definitely not going to regret it. And if you do, then my apologies. Let me know in the comment section. I'll give you a personal apology myself. Thanks again for watching, guys. If you haven't already, hit that like button, subscribe, post notifications turned on, and make sure you stay tuned to the channel because we are going to be hitting you up with all of the live news and updates here for your faces. Thanks again for watching, guys. Like, subscribe, and as always, I'll see you in the clouds.